So why time summoner cooldowns? Now, of course, this is referring to the enemy summoner cooldowns, not your team's. There's a couple reasons. The three most common ones are you're more likely to receive a gank, and if your gank is successful, you'll be putting your enemy behind in experience and farm, which is always good. The next thing is you'll be able to make plays, dragons, buffs, invades, or low HP dives, and more. Now, an example of a dragon play that you can make with this information is, say that your top comes and says that the enemy top doesn't have their TP, making it a 5v4 engagement. Hopefully you guys can sort of force dragon or an engagement where you guys have the advantage 5v4 and win that engagement with that advantage. So the last point is making engagements in your lane. So of course, with this information, you'll be able to decide whether it's worth it to engage or to not to. Now, how to write summoner cooldowns. Now, there's a format you can follow, the who, time, and summoner spells, which combined makes the high heal low formula, the who plus time plus summoner spell, making that, of course, again. Now we're going to cover the abbreviations for who. So the ADC means AD carry, or marksman if you want to be technical. Mid is middle, top is top, JG is jungler, and sup is support. Now this asterisk is to remind you that you kind of want to avoid writing bot summoner downs. Now this is because of a couple reasons. The summoner spells, first of all, have different cooldowns, so heal is going to be different from flash. The support may be running exhaust or ignite, which also have different cooldowns. And also the people are unlikely to use all their summoners at the same time. So not everyone on the enemy team is going to blow 4 of their summoners bot lane at the same time. They're going to be, say, if it's in a long engagement, someone may be flashing at the start and then healing 20 seconds later, if that's a really long engagement. And also something else to avoid, a general tip, is to don't take yourself mentally out of the game to write the cooldowns. Now for time, we're going to cover a couple things. So time can be written in a couple different ways. 2 different ways, actually. Time can be written when the SS, the summoner spell, was casted, and also time the SS, the summoner spell, will be up. The third thing here is a modification of the time you actually type to your team. Now I'll get to this a little bit later. I just want to cover very quickly that 9:20 means 9 minutes and 20 seconds, and 10:20 is 10 minutes and 20 seconds. You're including the traditional colon in between the hour and minutes, but I'm sure using these examples you could sort of decipher the time for yourself. So this is a neat little feature you guys should enable if you don't already have it already enabled. So hit that escape button, and on the left go to interface, and in the subsection, make sure under chat, enable show timestamps. Now from now on, anything you type will have a timestamp to the left of it. So time summoner spell casted versus time summoner spell will be up. When will we use both? The simple answer is we're going to be using both. Let's cover both of them. The first is time the summoner spell was casted. This is going to be a simple notation. It's generally just going to be Jinx Flash. Now in combination to the feature we enabled earlier with the timestamp there, we no longer have to write 052. So we're now reducing our APM. We won't have to be bothered with mathematics at all. We could just focus on CSing or whatever your objective is as your role in that game. So the next thing is adding the information to the previous line. So Jinx Flash, we're going to add some modification to that with the time summoner spell will be up timer attached to it. So Jinx Flash 552. This adds the 5 minutes to the initial 52-second where Jinx flashed, and that's when we know Jinx's flash will be up. So modification of record time generally applies to when you choose to write the summoner spell when it will be up. So for instance, the Jinx Flash 920 is the real time that Jinx's flash will be up, but instead you write Jinx Flash 900. Now this is what you say in chat. The reason why you say this is because you're thinking in your head, hey, I want to play safe, so I'll give a timer that gives my team extra breathing room for error. Now of course when you're playing with pre-made 5s, you can kind of forget this section and just share the accurate timer. Now in solo queue, this tip can be really important to saving a game. I've had games where the jungler decides to gank and the fight pushes the 920 mark, and say it's 921 and Jinx happens to have flash up, then escapes a gank. the jungler gets frustrated because it was a very close engagement and dives and dies, and then decides to troll from then on. It's not a very fun experience, so play it safe in solo queue, guys. Make sure that you give your team a little bit extra breathing room. So for summoner spells, you'll often see them abbreviated. Now here are the most common summoner spells you see in this meta. TP for teleport, F for flash, G is ghost, H is heal, IGN is ignite. You could also see IG for this. EXH for exhaust. You could also see EX. B is typically barrier, and CV is clairvoyance for those that are a little bit anti-meta. So there's a couple of examples of the formula right here. So there is the ADC 420 flash, the Jinx 420 F, the mid F 420, the 420 Jinx F, which is a little bit different because you'll notice the timing is first, but it doesn't matter. I mean, people can obviously decipher the information you're trying to tell them. And Jinx F420, where the summoner spell is in the middle as opposed to the end. So how do we know when the summoner spell cooldown will refresh? So you can actually hover over enemy summoner spells in game using the tab function, and you can see for yourself the length of time that somebody will have their summoner spell up after they use it. Now a cool feature about this function is that you can see an individual's time, specific time. For instance, someone's flash might be 300 seconds while another's may be different, depending on the masteries they run. Also, during game, there's certain boot upgrades that can reduce summoner spells, so you have to keep an eye out for any boot upgrades as the game goes on. So when to write summoner spell cooldowns? So going back to lane, say right after you buy items, is a great time to write summoner spell cooldowns and to actually rewrite summoner spell cooldowns, and I'll get to that a little bit later. Backing out, you could watch your character, which is always very good in case someone happens to try to get a kill as you back out. You could just simply write it and watch your character. A good habit to get to is keeping this information fresh by repeating in chat. So this is what I was trying to get to short while ago. So this is what I was trying to get to earlier by repeating the information: Jinx flash, Jinx flash, Jinx flash. You'll notice that I do that about every minute, and at 420 you'll notice I added the actual time the summoner spell will be up, which is good practice, and I definitely recommend it. So again, you'll notice the two things. One is that I keep repeating it, which is really important. You want to keep that information fresh. And number two is to add in that little bit of information on the end. Now what can we do with this information? Super simple: cooperation with your team to get map objectives, jungle invades, and ganks. So for instance, when you're pushing mid, you could relay that information to your jungler that the enemy mid has no flash, and you guys can make a play for the turret if that's your team goal. You could also be diving enemy teams if you have no flash or escape so they can't outplay you, etc, etc. And also, due to the nature of top lane being a solo lane with all that ground to cover, they're very vulnerable to gank, so relaying this information can seriously help you win your lane. Now, this also goes for late game. Say you're a support who happens to initiate on an AD carry with no summoners, and you guys end up getting a Baron, turret, and even possibly winning the game. Now this play possibly could not have been possible if you didn't know the information, such as the enemy AD carry didn't have any summoner spells. The only reason why you went in was because they had no escape. So this is why this information is important to keep updated and refreshed in chat. Now once you know what you want, say a gank, here's how to say it. Now the high yellow formula for this is the request plus proof. Because the request gank top please is a lot less effective than saying gank top please flash cooldown is effective. A lot more effective than saying simply gank top please. You can go a little bit more gank top flash CD easy kill. It's a little bit more effective because you sort of add a little bit of a positive reinforcement. Maybe you wouldn't want to say that in your little request, but after the kill and it's successful, you want to say, awesome job, jungler. Good job, jungler, rather, and say, come again, come back anytime. And then what's not effective, though, is saying gank top, please. And yeah, it's not very effective, even if the flash is on CD, even if you think it's an easy kill, even if he thinks an easy kill. Sometimes it's more of two bulls going at it. So the jungler, your jungler, may not want to work with you if you talk to him that way. So that's a very general tip. Now the last tip I'm going to give you is kind of an evil tip. It's so here's the scenario. You tell your jungler your enemy lane CDs are down, and they come to gank thinking that it's a free kill because their enemy summoner cooldowns are down. So when in fact they are not. So you basically you're pulling a roost on your own team, and there's a very high chance of this backlashing if he goes way too deep into my anecdote a little bit earlier, or the jungler went too deep and then died and started trolling. This could happen a lot. This gives him a lot of reason to do this. You would really only use this if you're 100% positive you could get a kill with just a little bit more damage from your team or from your jungler, and you've already tried requesting a gank, but he wouldn't come. So this is an easier way of getting him to move towards your lane and to help you out. So you basically, again, you tell them that you tell them that top enemy CD, flash, summoner spells, whatever his summoner spells are down, and then he would come up and hopefully you guys secure the kill, and he'd probably see the flash. Of course, you want to make the excuse saying, oh, whoops, my bad, or maybe you may not even mention it. That's up to you. So that's just a little tip that might help you guys. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video.